Hello to all my friends in the UK. Welcome to Martin Guitar. It's a little bit chilly out here, so I'm going to try to make this quick. But I wanted to show the first thing when you arrive here. What you see in the front of the building, we've actually made this look like the original factory would have looked back in the 1800s down the North Street plant, which is actually still there. A lot of the reason that we did this, and what you'll soon find, is we're very, very much in tune with our heritage, what came before, and how it shapes what we do now. So let's take a walk inside the factory. So the first place we're going to look, we're going to go in and check out the sawmill to see all of the wood when it first comes in. Just going to see how it gets processed. Over here you can see a whole lot of stacks of wood. We have a bunch of different varieties of mahogany. Most of that is mahogany and cedar. There's some of the exotic woods and stuff over there as well. You see some of the saws, some of the sanders, everything to level the pieces out. Basically, it comes into us pretty raw. Some of it's has a lot of the processing already done. We basically finish up the process and get the wood ready to go into some of the CNC machines ready for rough shaping right off the bat. See some of the drying kilns that we have in order to get the wood down to the moisture point that we want it to be at, so it's perfect for working on. Over here you see some of the pieces that have already been kind of cut down, ready to get cut down for the final shots to be made into some sides. So one of the first things I want to show you down here, this is actually a piece of waste material that we cut off from making the sides and making other pieces. But we actually take this. That machine over there actually cuts the material down so it gets into this kind of W shape that you see here. And then it'll come over to this machine or run through here. Sorry that it's not running right now. But what you see is we're trying to utilize as much of the wood as possible, and we actually end up making the ribbon that goes around to give structural support to the sides and give more gluing surface to the top and back. So again, trying to utilize as much of the wood as possible through the guitar making process without waste. Now that we're out of the sawmill, we're in the acclimating room. Acclimating room is pretty big. It's actually the first area of the building where the wood now is in a controlled environment. From here, throughout the rest of the building process, it stays in a humidity and temperature controlled kind of environment. And as we walk down the aisles here, we have different woods. Everything's categorized by the species of woods. We have some ebony fingerboards, we have ebony and rosewood sides. There's some rosewood sides and some back pieces. As we move down here, we start to get into the spruce. We have Sitka spruce tops and blanks for braces and all kinds of things as you go down. There's Adirondack, master grade. Everything has its own grading thing. It's all separated by the guys and girls that work down in this area. As we move down, we start to get into some more of the exotic stuff. We have some koa, we have maple. Over here we have the brace billets. This is how they come in before they get shaped for all the braces and everything. Keep on moving down. Over here we have all of the controlled woods. Anything with a purple tag on it is a controlled species. Everything comes with a certification. We have to make sure that we maintain a certain degree. Like over here we have certified cherry. If anybody's familiar with the smart wood models that we made, the certified wood models that we've made over the years, those guitars come with a certification that they have to have a specific mix of this material of wood. I forget exactly what the percentage is, but anything below that mix and it wouldn't be considered a certified instrument. So we have to really make sure that we maintain that. But these are really good things as far as sustainability, environmentally safe, because they come from sustainable forests. So we're still down here in the acclimating room. We have Peter Davenport. He's been here for 3 years now. I can't understand a thing he says, but you guys might be able to.
Various types of Madagascar, which I'm going through at the moment. We're looking at the new D35,
right?
Brazilian anniversary.
Yes, 50th anniversary D35 this year,
and also the new OM28.
Right.
So I'm looking to try and get some nice matches for the new models that are coming out.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Pete.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Hope you guys can hear me okay. It's a little loud right now. When you look out over here, basically the machine room. We have all of our CNC machines, all of our big saws and everything. That wood, that as soon as it comes out of the acclimating room, comes over here and starts to get processed, starts to get put into make guitar shape. The interesting thing is this whole area didn't exist about 20 years ago. We only had one CNC machine in the building. And now we've expanded to this. Now we're on the main production floor, and this is where the guitar starts to really become a guitar. Over here we have Dee, who's in charge of grading all of our tops. Right now she's looking at a Sitka top, looking for any imperfections in the wood, looking to make sure the grains are going which way they should be going, so there's no wind breaks, things like that. Dee, how long have you been working here?
13 years.
13 years. We're going to keep on moving down the line. Over here on this side, we have the back pieces already book matched, ready to go, already joined. They're going to be over here cut out by the laser. Actually on the other side, you see the top has already been cut out by the laser. And it's all ready to have, it has a rosette channel already cut in it. So these folks over here will be actually installing the rosette by hand. As we move down, you're starting to see, again, here's the back piece all cut out. The tabs that are still here on the side are for another process later on down for another mold. Over here in this area, we start to see the braces starting to get put on. These are heated vacuum presses that actually hold the braces down, help the drying process, and really actually quickens the drying process. The guitars can keep on moving. A really good shot of everybody hand cutting down these braces. You see where they're marked. She makes it look really, really easy, but believe me folks, this is not a simple thing to do. These are professionals at work. Over here, we're in the process of getting the sides bent. You see over here on this side, you see all these irons that are bending the sides. The wood gets treated, it's basically soaked to get softened. These heated presses go in, they bend all the sides depending on the model. Each different one kind of has a different program set in it for each individual guitar. And they come out, they end up sitting in clamps for a while. Over on this side, after the sides are already bent, now they're getting the blocks installed. Over here, those ribbons that I showed you earlier, now they're starting to be applied to the side. They get glued on and then applied with clothespins. All of a sudden, it takes us back a number of years. Remember when I said that there are certain processes that we've used over the course of our 180 some years that we found still work in today's technology and with today's instruments, and this is one of those occasions. You'll notice he's working on, again, the 50th anniversary D35. 50th anniversary is this year. These guitars are pretty special. Over here to my right, here we're actually laser imprinting the serial numbers and everything on the block, the model name and the serial numbers on the block. All of our standard series instruments, basically anything that doesn't have an ID tag gets done this way. And even the ID tags get laser printed, but not with this program. So that's pretty cool that you actually get to see that happening. You can start to see the logo taking shape in there. So over here, starting to get ready to apply the top and back. Now those tabs again that you saw on the top, on the back before, it goes into these little holes for this mold. This holds the side in place, makes sure everything gets lined up. It goes and sits in these vacuum presses over here, and then eventually comes out and gets trimmed down. Here you see a guitar sitting over here that hasn't been trimmed down yet. But if you listen in the background, you hear some routers running. That's them trimming off of those little tabs and trimming the body shaft. So here's the kind of exciting process. The guitars that get bound, like the D28s, AT28s, C45s, things like that, that process gets done right here. And this is Mercedes. Mercedes has been here for 10 years.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi to all our friends in the UK. Thanks for joining us. Sorry you can't be here today, but we're glad to have you with us. I'm actually brazing. What I'm doing is routing out a channel around the exterior border of the body itself. That's where we're going to put the bindings in. So right now I'm going to literally braid the outside binding for an HD 28.
There it is, all done, ready for binding. Now after the channel's been routed for the binding, we're ready to actually install the binding. What you see Royce doing, you see him putting some glue around. It's a special flexible glue that we use that allows the wood to continue to move, but it allows the plastic and the glue to kind of move with it so things don't break loose. Here you see him doing multiple levels. You have 4 different kinds of inlay going in with the actual binding around, and he'll tape it on. And later in the process, what they actually do, they'll actually bind the entire guitar with cloth straps so that you can actually have it tied down and everything tight. They'll sit like that overnight, and then all of that will be removed the next day. So we've been talking about the body a lot so far, but we haven't talked about the neck. Over here in this area, they're starting to put the frets in. You notice that there's leveling the sides of the frets, making sure that they're not sharp. They hand put each fret in, and then over here you see this hydraulic machine that's actually pressing them all into place. Now, fun fact for all of you listening, this was actually my first job when I started here back in 1999. I was actually putting all the frets in. We didn't have that hydraulic press back then. Put everything in with hammers, walked uphill both ways in snow. You know the old story. Over here we have blank necks that came up from the CNC machine, and we're rough shaped. Over here they're starting to put the necks and glue the necks and fingerboards together with these hydraulic presses over here. Hear that behind me, he's actually tapping the neck in, they're joining them together. This is Joe Morani. Joe, how long have you been here?
I started 1969.
My God, and you're still doing it?
Still doing it.
Happily. Awesome. So what are you joining together here? What is this?
This is, what I do here, I fit the neck into the body. I get the proper drop and alignment. And this here is the D18 Retro.
So it's D18 Retro, and what you're finding is he's doing this in the front end, making all the big cuts, because this neck is forever going to be matched to this body. So it's not that any neck in the building can go in any body of the building. Each part is crafted to work together forever. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Now over here to my left, you actually start to see guitars. They're prepping for the finishing process already. Guitars are complete. They're scraping down some of the binding. You see over here, some of the binding's still a little bit high, scraping down some of the high spots in the wood, sanding around the top, sanding around the sound holes, getting ready for that first finishing process to make sure that everything goes on evenly the first time. Now over here we have Joel, who is rough shaping the necks. Now they come up from the CNC machine with a lot of the shaping and everything kind of done to them, but there's still a lot of hands-on stuff that needs to be done to them. You see all the cutouts and all the dust and everything on the table that shows that he's been doing this a lot even already this morning. So Joel, what are you working on?
I'm working on a Eric Clapton.
It's a Clapton neck?
Signature model.
How long have you been here?
14 years.
Awesome. So he's really carving in, getting that traditional Martin shape. You see the diamond on the side and how everything kind of goes together. Those, again, that comes up really rough shapen and really sharp edged from the CNC. We want to keep that look, but give it a little bit more refinement. So he's using multiple chisels, multiple different kinds of sandpaper and files to try to get everything even so it feels good in your hand. So we've seen the sanding process. We're moving along down the line. This is the area where things start to get sprayed. Now what we see over here, some of our Sunburst guitars, there's only a few people in the building that do this. This is all done by hand. It's not a machine that does it. There's no template that does it. These guys are really artists in their own right. They have to know the process of spraying, the steps that go through to get the colors just right and get even and consistent throughout every one of them. Now behind me and alongside of me, you see a lot of guitars hanging on trucks. They're basically drying. You see they still have, they're very shiny, but they're still not done. It takes 2 weeks in between coats to to get through the finishing process, do sanding, finishing, polishing, and even the polishing process that we're going to see in a little bit. It's still not the final product that you're going to see. So, whereas these guitars look like they're ready to go, they're definitely not. So I have to talk about this area. For those of you who may or may not know, I am the manager of the customer repair shop, and that's where we're standing right now. You see this board behind me. There are several things that people do with guitars that they probably shouldn't do. Some people try to fix things themselves with masking tape. Basically what we do, we try to undo a lot of times what the awful things that people do. We work on everything that we've ever made, stuff from the 1800s to stuff that was just built a few weeks ago. Everything that's back here is customer-owned stuff. As we kind of move through, Susan here is concentrating very, very hard on a 1930s, I think this is an R17, right? R18. So one of our arch tops, she's doing a neck fit on it. We did some crack repairs and some other things. This is your great-grandfather?
No, grandfather.
Grandfather that worked here back in this picture here is from 1925. So again, we're very, very conscious of our heritage, very conscious of the family and generational environment that we have here in the building. So there's actually, how long did he work here? The picture was taken in 1925.
1925, he retired, I think 1965.
So there's actually a chance, if this is going to melt your brains, that he could have worked on this guitar back in the 30s, and now Susan's working on it again here in 2015. Thanks. So I had mentioned the polishing and finishing process. And over here to my left, we have one of two of our robotic polishers. Not running at the moment, but there's something interesting I want to show you. Now, I may have mentioned before that some of the robots that we use, we bring them in to do some of the rough work that doesn't necessarily need a human's touch. And what you see behind me is you actually see one of our workers doing it by hand, doing the same job by hand that the robot polisher does. But sometimes some of the stuff that comes off the robot polisher is still not exactly meeting everything that we want it to, so we'll go over it by hand and make sure that every guitar is as perfect as it can be. This is our purling department. So the guitars have been phrased. Some of our models get a lot of pearl, B45s, 42s, some even custom models. They come, like this is an abalone shell, just as an example of what it looks like in nature. When it actually goes, when the binding actually happens, we put a piece of poly plastic in here in the channel, and that eventually gets replaced with pearl that's cut out. Sometimes you actually have to break pieces of pearl up to get them to move along throughout the curves. Over here you see Dale, who is inlaying some pearl pieces. Or you're inlaying some wood pieces, right? You're doing the rosette?
Yeah, this is a custom.
So what's going to go around in the poly area?
This one's gonna get some rope inlay.
Oh, awesome.
I have one up here that's done. You want to see it?
So that's going to be all bent and everything going in place, hopefully going in one piece.
Yeah.
But here you can see one that's actually done. That's what it'll look like when it's all finished. You can see it all mitered all throughout around the fingerboard. So in this area, we're now in final assembly. The guitars have been polished, they've been sanded, they've had the finish applied. What I have behind me is the simple dovetail machine. And what the simple dovetail machine does, this joint took the place of the old mortise and tenon joint that we used for a number of years. The idea was to get a dovetail that was a little bit easier to use for mass production. And what you see is this thing measuring that pocket. The idea of this, again, specific necks go with specific bodies. So what this machine does, it'll actually kind of carve a pocket into the top and into the side so that the neck will actually fit in and join snugly. There's still a little bit of hand tweaking that needs to go on, a little bit of hand chiseling that needs to go on, but it really makes the process very, very efficient. So anything in our 16 series, some other models again that had that mortise and tenon joint are now going to have this. This is a really, really special area here at Martin. One of the things that people don't really think about is, we've been making guitars for a really, really long time. And that means that we've been making guitar tooling for a really, really long time. A lot of the tools that you see out in the marketplace today are based on tools that we've made in the past and continue to make here. This is our machine shop, where guys are making tooling, they're making fixtures, basically anything that we need to make sure that the guitars keep on going through and are as consistent as possible. So over here, we're actually seeing the necks get married to the bodies. You see her gluing the thing in, taking the clamps off, all the glue's in, ready to be dried. This one over here, she is just getting the last few tweaks in, making sure that everything is completely tight. Make sure there's no gaps around, make sure that everything is perfect, and then we'll go ahead and glue that in. And in the next process, it's ready for the bridge. So here I'm holding an HT28V, the neck's been glued in already. What you see here is a nice little pocket's been routed out to basically inlay the bridge. Now, what I don't want you to get the impression that we're taking a bunch of wood out of the top. What this is basically the old practice, if any of you are familiar with what we do, and we still continue to do back in the customer repair area. We'll put a bridge on the top, we'll scribe around, trace that bridge shape, and then you'll have the outline, and then we'll actually hand scrape the finish off. It's time consuming, not so great on the wrists. So we have the bridge pocket router, which is right here behind us. Basically, it's a robot that takes care of that, saves everybody's wrists, and it literally does that exact job. It takes the shape of the bridge, it scribes that area out, and then it just cleans the finish off of that area. So we're almost finished. The guitar is almost ready to be played. Over here to my left, we have the Plek machines. These are getting the guitars ready. They're dressing the frets, cutting the nut slots, making sure this has the correct saddle in it. Doing a lot of the pre-setup kind of things. Over here, after that process, they go through their final polishing. They go through several polishing before, you know, we saw a couple processes ago where they still had a shine to them, but if you saw it closely, they were still kind of porous, didn't really have that mirror look to them. These are completely ready to be set up and strung. And behind me, this is the final inspection and stringing area. All of these folks are going to go through each guitar, they're going to do the final setups on them, they're going to make sure that every guitar has all of the dust taken out of it. Over here you see Greg hand slotting the nut, making sure the nut goes down to its final depth. Now you see how quickly he's doing this. Greg's been doing this for a long time. How long have you been here?
21 years.
21 years, and I worked with Greg in this department for a number of years. Now, that little gauge that we have there's a 7/1000 tolerance. That means there's that little hook that's right there. I don't even know if you can see it. Basically, that 7/1000 means you either have the perfect amount of playability or your nut slot's too low and the strings are buzzing open. So you got to take a lot of concentration doing this. You know, somebody like Greg that's been doing this for so long, he can almost do it in his sleep at this point, doesn't even really need the gauge, right? So these guys will do all that. They'll install the electronics, make sure the guitar is perfect, string them up, play through every fret to make sure that every guitar has its optimum playability. So after it's done with this process, the guitar was going to go in the warehouse where it'll sit for 4 days. It'll come out and be re-inspected to make sure that it's used to its string tension, because these guitars have never had all of that string tension, 160 to 180 pounds of string tension pulling on them. So we'll see if anything moves, they'll have another setup, and then they'll shift out to the stores. One last little special area that we have here in the building. As you see with the sign behind me, I'm in our custom shop. Now, the custom shop has been growing over the last few years. People that, you know, enjoy our standard instruments but maybe want something a little bit more crazy. Behind me I have a small shop bot, basically a CNC machine that does some of the more really intricate inlay work that you can't even do by hand. We'll get a better shot of that in a couple of minutes. But if you look around, basically this is a cell within the building. All of the custom guitars that are up here stay up here and they get completed up here. Here you see a custom model with the ribbon on the back. This is just an example of something that the shop bot cuts out. It cuts out the channel and then actually cuts out the inlay for it. So this is a closer example of some of the stuff that the shop bot can do. Here's a fingerboard that has all of the channels routed in for inlay. This is actually a piece of the inlays, the actual inlay material when it's all cut out. And then Sean, who's running around right now, will actually sit here and inlay, much like our purling department, will sit here and hand inlay each of these pieces in. You see that this is a combination of some of the wood inlay and some pearl inlay as well. One of the first things you can do when you're here in the lobby, we have this wonderful museum that we've set up. This got put on, I think, about 8 years ago. Something that we're really proud of, that chronologically shows how our guitars have evolved through the years, and some of the more special guitars we have. You know, D100, which marked our 1 millionth serial number guitar, was a special edition that we did. After that, over here to the right, you have some guitars, some Stauffer guitars from the 1800s, the early 1800s, 1833, 1834. Some violins that we made. Moving into the 1830s. Again, really into our heritage. Here you see a workbench, basically what it would have looked like back in the early 1900s at the North Street facility. A lot of these fixtures that you see here, we actually still use on the production floor today. Moving down into the 1900s, where you start to get into the mandolins and the ukuleles and some of the really unique instruments that people were sort of developing back in the era. Some iconic instruments started to come out, the Jimmy Rogers. Moving into the big guitar boom, when you start seeing the dreadnoughts, the guitars that are more familiar today, that 14 fret shape, that 12 fret body shape, that is really an icon in the industry that was developed here. Some guitars you might recognize, Elvis's guitar. This guitar actually was really cool. It was one of our guitars that Leo Fender actually worked on and developed the electric pickup. It could have been one of the first electric guitars made. Kingston Trio, some of our electric guitars that we made back in the 60s, 50s rather, you know, with the D. Armand pickups in them. Would have been made famous if anybody saw the Nirvana Unplugged. Kurt Cobain was actually using one of those instruments. Some of our other instruments, Joan Baez, Paul Simon, Gordon Lightfoot, Dan Fogelberg. More artist guitars, we have Grand Ole Opry. These are signature series, limited editions. Johnny Cash. One guitar in particular that we're extraordinarily proud of is the 1 millionth serial number guitar here spinning in the case. Extraordinarily ornate, one of a kind. So, moving on, we have sort of, you saw the workbench at the North Street back in the, what it looked like back in the 1920s, 1930s. We actually moved up to this building in 1964. This is what that building would have looked like back then, a little bit more modern. You see one of the old electric amps that we made in conjunction with the Allen Organ Company. And again, some modern guitars that we're working on right now. So, again, hope you guys get a chance to come down here and see this stuff in person, but hopefully giving you a bird's eye view of what the experience would be like if you were here.